favorite podcast. Today, I have a special guest. I've been dying to talk to my brother, my big brother, Alex Lupafya, based out of Boston, in Massachusetts. Bro, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good, Kisset, man. It's good to see you. And I think more than anything else, man, Kisset, I'm just proud of all the amazing things you're doing out there, man. And I hope you appreciate the magnitude of the things that you are doing and how you're such a game changer, especially in terms of what you're doing for sports in Zimbabwe, putting Zimbabwe on the map. As a proud Zimbo, it's just something that I'm beaming with pride. Just following you on my LinkedIn page and being able to see all these amazing things that you're doing. This is fantastic, man.
Nah, I really appreciate it, bro. You've always been a great supporter and an encourager over the past few months. And, I'm so glad we got connected because of this beautiful sport that we love so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, really great to see you. I haven't seen you in a couple months. Hopefully we can get a meet done before the year ends. Yeah, I mean, we tried to get you to link up in Zim, and we had some cross wires. So bummed about that because your story is great. You're a great storyteller, and I wanted people to sort of experience that as well. So we're gonna get right into it, and why don't you tell me or tell us, like how your journey started at St. John's College, or how rugby became a big part of what you do, obviously.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. So for me, rugby was a big deal, but I didn't fully understand the impact of the sport and what it meant to me. I think honestly, until I got into lower six, and at the time, lower six, I was playing second team rugby, or we called it first game because it would be a combination of rugby of first and second. But the person who changed my mindset and my passion for rugby was really my first team coach, Mike Renahan. We called him Renters or Maniac Mike at the time. But he was just still is a good human being, tough as nails. He's now in England. He's now in England. He's retired. And ironically, when he moved to England, he started coaching a school called St. John's College too, I think. And I think it's in Portsmouth. Don't quote me that directly, but I think that's where it is. But the irony, one of the things that he always used to say was dream big dreams. And he would also always say nobody's bigger than the game of rugby. And he was like, I think one of my favorite things, he was allergic to prima donnas. So regardless of how talented and gifted you were, he certainly would put you in your place. And but he was all about the students. And for me, he was the game changer for me for rugby, just in terms of how much he cared for the sport and how he had the sport define us as people, as men, growing up as well.
And that was in lower six. So what year was that?
So lower six, I was in lower six 96 because I finished at John's 97. 97. And 97 was probably the best year for me because I was playing first team, and first team came with its own props because it was just and it's funny because my wife doesn't normally understand this, because you talk to any Zimbo, the best days of their lives are in high school. And you talk to any Zimbo that played rugby, and especially if you played first team rugby, there is no better feeling than playing first team rugby because of just it's like a godlike status when you play first team rugby. And I remember explaining this.
High school football, right?
Yeah, it is, and that's the one thing I would always say to people, that especially people who are from America, to say if you want to understand high school rugby in Zimbabwe. It's like what high school football is like in Texas. It's
Right.
like there's football, then there's Texas football. And
Right.
but I think what makes Zimbabwe culture very different and also very similar to that is Zimbabwe is not a big country.
No.
So that was one of the things I loved. So when you play Falcon, when you play Watershed, when you play Peterhouse, or when you play Gandhi, you're in that same circle and you're seeing those same faces all the time. And the camaraderie that's built with high school rugby is nothing like you've ever seen. I mean, it's everybody knows everybody because this country is so small. But you could always hear, hey, by the way, did you hear Falcon beat Gandhi, or Peterhouse beat Georges, or PE beat Falcon at Falcon? So when you hear all of those things, the context of that is just absolutely incredible. And then when you're playing first team rugby, man, I remember Mike Renahan, he would just give you this pep talk. And I remember it was just the best feeling because I don't know how other high schools were, but we were very fortunate. I didn't know of any other schools that had like a team manager. And we
Yeah.
had this man by the name of Mr. Beresford Miller. And I'll never forget this man. He was just the kindest man, and he was like our team manager. And and I remember he had his own company. I can't remember what he did, but he also had the flexibility to come in and out whenever. So he would always be at most practices. He would be at every game, whether we were traveling to Falcon, to Peterhouse, to Gandhi. Mr. Beresford Miller was always there. And I remember he had this massive, I think it was like a 7 Series BMW, and he would
Right.
always put the kits in there. Like when we went on tour, he would always organize all of these things, like the sponsors. And I remember he got us all of this amazing kit one day. And when we would go warm up for the game, it was always like the routine before every first team game, where you would go warm up like at the start of halftime. You go warm up and you go change, and you're
Yeah.
changing in your tracksuit tops, and you're doing drills. And I remember thinking to myself, man, my heart is pounding so fast because Renan is making us do all of these drills. And in my mind, I'm like, did this guy forget we're about to play a game? Because before we even get onto the field, you're drenched in sweat. But what
Yeah.
was cool about it at the time, I was fortunate enough to go to St. John's and tour their locker rooms. And they've got the most amazing locker room I've ever seen. But I remember at the time we used to change in our art studio, but our art studio felt like these kids' locker room today. And that was also because of Mr.
So
Beresford Miller.
just to clarify that, you obviously you were at the game in July, right? Who were they
Yes.
playing? They were playing Gandhi, and you met a boy, and I know you and Bob go ways back. So shout out to
Uh,
Bob. And
Bob Mahari, first of all, he's an absolute legend.
yeah,
Love Bob Mahari. He's like a big brother to me. And shout out to Mahari Sunset Bakery, where every kid in Mandara and Greendale walked through the doors of Mahari Sunset Bakery. And
right.
shout out to his family. Just an absolute blessing, man.
Yeah, so I mean, you were at home, you watched that game, and you say now obviously you got there and you looked at the facilities. Obviously,
Yeah.
they have upgraded from the time you were there, and you're talking about the locker room right now.
Yeah.
What else has changed now from obviously the time that you were there,
Yeah.
and some of the things that you noticed that are different from the time you visited.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I think high school rugby in Zimbabwe, the best way I can describe it is it's an event now. I mean, everybody stops what they're doing. When I was playing, you would get your parents and the opposing team. That was it. Now, I was just amazed at how many people show up at a rugby game, and depending on the school, sometimes I know a good friend of mine, Robert Mpaya, actually went to. I think it was the Peterhouse game afterwards, like the week after I was there, and he couldn't even find parking because it
Mm.
was packed. There were thousands and thousands of people, but it's also become this hub where you see old mates that you haven't seen in a long time, and it's just the culture behind it. And now they're doing all of these cool things at St. John's where they're flipping over their blazers, spelling out Rams, and
Yeah.
it's cool, man. And it's just like it's
Yeah.
it's just incredible to see how the game has revolutionized in Harare, and what an amazing job they're doing. But partially because of people like you who are promoting the sport, who are affording us who are living abroad to be able to see these games as well.
Yeah. No, that is awesome, fascinating, and I remember I think it was a couple months ago we were talking and found out that you actually coached Michael Passaportis, or
Yeah,
Doctor Michael Passaportis now.
yeah,
Tell us
yeah,
a little bit about that. Like I'm sure Michael watched this
yeah.
and just go down memory lane as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, when I saw you had interviewed Michael,
Yeah,
aka Ox, that's what I called him, Ox, because he was a massive lad at 13 years old. But
yeah.
I remember I'd just finished at John's, and I was working in Zim. I was actually a sales rep at Astra Paints at the time, and Mr.
That's
Squire.
all to Mr. Abraham.
What?
Abraham.
That's right. That's right.
We can't forget our boy, man. We can't forget.
That's right. That's right, man.
I hope he
And
tunes in. I hope he tunes in.
I hope so too, man. I hope so too. But what was crazy about that was I'd never coached before, and at the time, Mr. Squire came up to me, who was like, I think he was now the sports master at the time, and he said, "Alex, would you come coach these kids?" And I remember saying to him, I've never coached before. No, in fact, I take that back. Mike Renahan was still there, and he was the sports master. But Atherton Squire had asked me to come coach. And I remember I was nervous. And I went up and talked to Mike Renahan because he was first team coach. So to me, in my eyes, he was like the epitome of coaching. And I remember asking him, Mike, I have no idea about coaching. And I remember he said to me, Alex, they're young lads. Just let them run and they'll do whatever you ask them. And it was like a typical Mike Renahan answer. And he goes, and I said, Mike, in terms of conditioning, what am I supposed to do? He goes, Alex, they're 13 years old. They can run forever. And I remember coaching Mike Passaportis, and he was this gentle giant, such an amazing kid. And it was an absolute privilege to have coached him and the whole under 13 team at the time. And I remember we ended up going undefeated. And
Anyone else you remember from that sort of era that
so,
jumps
yeah,
out?
yeah, yeah. And I wish I had my ball. It's in the downstairs. When I left, they gave me a rugby ball. I wish I had.
Yeah,
I brought it with me,
so
and they signed it. And this
yeah.
was over 26, 27 years ago. And I still have this ball. I just have to put some in, put it in my office. But Garth Ziegler, Pareja, I think he's a doctor. I think Garth Ziegler ended up playing professional rugby as well.
You did,
Tim Brown. At the time, he was like this small kid. I think Tim Brown is like 6'4", maybe 250, 110, 115 kgs. I mean, massive kid. I mean, you look at Michael Passaportis, but I would tell you the best experience of me coaching was not going undefeated. Was great. We didn't expect it, but the young kids, they did the work. But the best feeling for me, one day, I'm scheduled to leave for the States because I've just been accepted to school. And I get a call from Mr. Squire.
And what year is this? 1999?
This is 1997. This is 1997. Yeah. Okay. And I get a call from Mr. Squire, and he says, Alex, Mr. Passaportis left a letter for you. And I was shocked because Mr. Passaportis, he was like a very imposing figure. I think he was like...
This is Michael's dad.
This is Michael's dad.
Okay.
This is Michael's dad. And I had met him a couple of times, obviously, because I coached his son. And I think he was like 6'6", something ridiculous, 6'7", All I know, he was
Yeah.
maybe one of the tallest men that I had ever seen. But
Achis Nijman.
what's that?
Yeah. I said like Achis Nijman, the Springbok locks.
Yeah. But he was just this imposing figure, and he
Yeah.
never looked friendly. So I could never read his mind. He was always
Right.
nice to me, but he was just one of those people that he was always hard to read in terms of, hey, does this guy even like me? Or
Yeah.
uh, then to get a call that there's a letter from you that this man left for you. And I remember I picked it up just before, and I will never forget this letter. And this man, father, had written a letter, handwritten to me, saying
Wow.
how impactful me coaching his son was, and how he appreciated that, and how it meant to him, his family, and his son. And I remember at the time I was reading the letter, and I was just like, then I start getting to the emotional part, and I'm reading it in my Mazda 323 at that time. And I remember just getting choked up, and I'm like, just getting all choked up with emotion, because this guy
Yeah.
had poured his heart out, to say thank you. And the
Wow.
fact that this man took the time to just do this. And for me, I was just coaching these kids because it was my alma mater,
Yeah.
and I loved doing it, but I didn't realize the coaching had transcended the game, and it had
Yeah.
now really become more than just a game. It had just
Yeah.
become everything to do with humanity. And I mean, I will never forget that. And even if Mr. Passportus, if he does see this, we never spoke because I left and I had no way of getting in touch with him. But if you do see this, Mr. Passportus, thank you for your letter. And it certainly meant a lot to me. And Ox, I'm glad you're thriving and doing well as well.
Yeah. Man, I think that's why we love this sport, right? Like
Absolutely.
it's a unique sport that brings people together, people from different backgrounds.
Yeah,
I always tell people that rugby is such a special sport. They don't
it
understand.
is.
Most of my most cherished relationships or connections are through this amazing sport. And we're about to get into the difficult part. I see behind you there. You got some really nice gear. Obviously the team that we both support. I mean, I always tell people because people get it confused.
Yeah,
Hey, you support the All Blacks, but you got friends that play for the Springboks. I
yeah,
mean, the Springboks have a special place in my heart too. A big fan of France, and I always tell people that for me, uh, the rugby comes first. I support
yeah,
rugby first, then I have
yeah,
favorite teams,
yeah,
just like the NFL. I love football first, and then I have obviously the Steelers are my team, but I
yeah.
have a couple other teams that I like to watch that I enjoy. Lamar Jackson at the Ravens,
Mm.
that kind of stuff. And but talk to me about the nice frames we see behind you, and obviously your love for the All Blacks is unmatched almost. So talk to me
Listen,
about
I always tell people they're all Blacks fans, then there's me.
right.
Uh, I'm in a different category, man. I
I mean,
love.
I'll attest to that. I'll testify to that.
Listen, I flew to England to watch
Yeah, I
the
was
All
about to,
Blacks play.
I was gonna get there. I was like,
So we'll get there.
but I was like, Dim Koma, so let me ease into it.
Yeah, okay, I'll let you ease into it. Something white house.
Yeah,
So
right. Right.
you know what? You know what's crazy? First of all, let me get you into how I became an All Black supporter.
Right.
So when we went on tour in South Africa in Upper Six, there were times we got a lot of racism when we were in South Africa. And this was just post apartheid, but things hadn't changed that much. Yes, Mandela was free, but South Africa was still very racist. And we got that. Like, even there were times we went to Messina for a rugby tournament. They wouldn't let the black kids, and this was coming from the headmaster, they wouldn't let the black kids sleep in the dormitories. And they told us, sleep in the locker rooms. And this is why I have so much respect for Mike Renahan, because
Yeah.
when we were on these tours, he protected us, especially a lot of the black kids who were in these spaces and were being threatened Renahan was the one guy we all felt had our back and protected us. And I remember what was customary after we played teams is there would always be like a braai or something like that, or go to and have some drinks after the game. And I remember because we were so upset with the way the South Africans were treating us, we would deliberately root for the All Blacks when they were playing South Africa. Then I saw the haka. Then from there it was game over. I was just like, there's no way I'm supporting anybody else other than these guys. And then the Rugby World Cup came. Then Jonah Lomu came, and the black jersey right there is a signed jersey by Jonah Lomu, which those are hard to come by. And for me, the greatest player that I wish I could have actually ever seen in person. But this is the thing that I love about rugby. Jonah Lomu, probably one of the biggest names in world sport. But then you look at the humility that this man had. It was never bigger than the team, was never bigger than the game itself. And I think that's what I liked about the aura and mystique behind the All Blacks. When you think about their history, the winningest sports team in sports history, then you get the two biggest names who might be the captain and the vice captain go and inspect and clean the locker rooms after every game. So they leave it in the same way they found it. Name any pro sport here in the States where you'll get pro athletes who will go sweep and clean their locker rooms. It's not going to happen. But these guys, the All Blacks, and the one in the white frame is signed by the 2015 Rugby World Cup winning team, which I was fortunate. I went to the game, the quarterfinals, I think, where All Blacks played France, and Julien Savea demolished the French. And
Julien was unplayable. 2000.
He was. I think he had 4 tries that game.
14, 2013, 14, 15, Julien was unplayable.
He was unplayable. He was just a beast. And the thing with Julien, what amazed me about him was his center of gravity. For somehow this guy found ways to keep standing and just bounce people off of him. So he was incredible, man. But as impressive as Julien was, he wasn't Jonah Lomu.
No.
Hey. So we can never get that twisted. Only
and then quickly tell me about the is that the haka?
Yeah, what is so that? That's a canvas of I think they're Twickenham. And so they're doing the haka there. And for me, for any rugby fan, being able to watch a game at Twickenham is like the Mecca. You want to be able to say, I've been at Twickenham. And those were one of my bucket lists. I wanted to watch a game in Twickenham, and I wanted to watch the All Blacks versus the Springboks. Because at the end of the day, I don't care where world rugby is, there are no two powerful titans than the Springboks and the All Blacks. And as much as I'm an All Blacks fan, I will forever have respect for the Springboks. And the only time I will say I did root for South Africa was the 2019 World Cup?
Yeah.
And Sia was captain. And for me, I had to stop even being an All Black supporter then and support South Africa, because when you hear Sia's story and where he came from, what he's doing, and for a black kid to captain the Springboks, when you hear the history of the Springboks, again, this transcended the game. And this is what makes rugby such an impactful sport, where you say, you put aside rivalry and you say, you know what, I'm just going to appreciate a moment in history that's being made right before our eyes. And I think that's what Sia did. And I think he's been an incredible captain. And I was glad to see him back again for this World Cup, and to be able to do that.
And he's in an amazing form, which is just bonkers on its own, right? Like, considering that he had a major knee injury a few months ago in April. But I'm glad you touched on that, and I know, Nkoma, that talking about Twickenham as being the mecca of rugby, Allah, the Garden, Madison Square Garden, or State Center, or Twickenham obviously is that venue, maybe with Ellis Park because of the significance.
Yeah, Ellis Park,
yeah. But I know you flew for one night to go watch your All Blacks play the Springboks. What happened, Nkoma? Like, what happened?
Man, it was painful. It was painful. In fact, if the All Blacks are watching this, you need to make this right by me.
Right.
I will tell you, I was so excited. I was working, and I got a pop-up thing on my phone that said Springboks versus All Blacks. And initially, I thought, okay, it's either in New Zealand or South Africa because it's part of the tournaments that they normally play. But then I saw Twickenham, and I was just like, man, these are the gods speaking to me.
Right.
And I remember I called my wife and I said, hey, listen, are we doing anything on this day or this weekend? And she said, no. And I just went ahead and bought the tickets. I didn't even call my friend.
The missus.
I didn't even, and normally I try and coordinate with my friend, but I knew a game of this caliber is going to be sold out within minutes. It's just, there's no way these tickets are going to be just freestanding. And I just bought the tickets and I said, you know what, I'm just going to go by myself. And I ended up coordinating with a couple of friends who were in England and who were also at the game. But I essentially went there to the game, and this is the great thing about rugby. I'm sitting next to this couple, and they All Blacks fans too, husband and wife. They're retired, and so we just start talking, and we just hit it off. You would have thought I've known them since I was 12 years old, and vice versa for them. And only to find out this couple, one of their people that works for them was Scott Barrett's, or the Barrett's aunt. And she worked for them, and she's just saying this just nonchalantly, and she's just telling me the history behind the Barrett boys, that they just cut from the cloth, that if one doesn't show up for work, the other one will come show up for them. Even if they don't work, they just so the job gets done. And she was just talking about how humble they are as a family. But the game itself, you talk about everything that could have gone bad, went bad. And that was to have traveled all the way for that. I will say, despite the outcome, it was so worth it, because the atmosphere in the stadium was electric, was incredible, and the All Blacks, it was almost like they forgot how to play. And my biggest fear came as well, which was how South Africa also shows up. South Africa has this thing in their DNA, and I haven't been able to figure it out, but you've got to give credit where credit is due. I don't care how mediocre or average South Africa can look, but when it comes to the big stage, when it comes to the World Cup year, those boys go into a high gear like you've never seen before. Those Springboks played like men possessed, and they were just firing on all cylinders. They came out all guns blazing, and that momentum was just electric. And I also looked at this as a gift and a curse for the All Blacks, because I think it's going to do the thing that I hope it will do, which is it's just going to shock their system, so they come into this World Cup tournament with, I don't want to say serving of humble pie, because the All Blacks are always humble, but I feel this was a shock to their system, because the All Blacks, it's a wake-up call. When the All Blacks wake up, nobody can stop them. And the talent that's on that team is pretty incredible, although I still feel some people are playing out of position, in my own humble opinion. Like I still think Rico belongs on the wing. I don't see him as a center.
I'm with you.
Wing, and I wish Adi Surveyor, man, that dude is like cut from a different cloth.
Yeah,
He just he plays like he's 120 kilos, 6'8". And when
right.
you see this guy, I would never want to tackle him because he's impossible to stop. The tenacity that he has is just incredible.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was watching that game with buddies in New York City, and obviously I was the only All Blacks fan there.
Yeah,
But like I said, it's a weird thing when the Springboks and the All Blacks play because again, I've had this association with the Springboks, so
yeah,
I have a soft spot for them, and
yeah.
really do appreciate what they bring toward rugby, as you said, and some of those forwards, man, like you can't. There's nothing that can compete, no team that can compete with the Springboks in the forwards if
No,
they decide to turn up, right? Like
yeah,
you just got mountains. Like you got Tor Timber in the second row, in the lineup. How do you handle the set piece when you've got
yeah,
Aches Naiman, who is 7 foot, and you've got Yeben Etzebeth, who's like a monster, and then you've
yeah.
got Peter Step on the
He's
flanks.
like what 6'9", at least like 260,
Yeah,
270.
and,
So yeah,
and then the All Blacks have Adi Sevilla, who's 6'3", and then
yeah,
Sam Kane, who's 6'2", and then
six, yeah,
you have Scott Barrett, obviously, who's 6'7", 6'8". But
yeah,
it's impossible to play the Springboks when they play like that,
yeah.
and I just gave massive respect. I didn't even have any bitterness, or I didn't
No,
even feel sad.
no,
I was just like, you know what, this is what rugby needs.
absolutely.
Um,
And you
long
know
may
the one saving grace about losing to the Springboks is I
yeah,
felt at the end of the day we lost to a better team, and
right,
with just the way even though the All Blacks made a lot of mistakes,
yeah.
I still feel the way the Springboks played that day. Even if the All Blacks showed up, I don't think they were
There's
going to.
no way.
They were,
Yeah, there's no
and
way.
I can't finish this interview
Yeah,
without giving a shout out to one of my favorite Springboks, which I don't have too many of. But the
yeah,
beef was also cut from a different cloth. And what I remember about the Beast, I'll never
yeah,
forget watching a game against the All Blacks when I realized this guy is different. I
right.
remember him chasing Ma Nonu, and he caught him and he tackled him. And it was just Ma Nonu, a
Yeah,
caught Ma Nonu.
my
And,
special.
and it's not like Ma Nonu was running and he just happened to be there. No, he ran
Right,
past the Beast and then he caught up with him. And
right.
that's when I realized this dude was cut from a different cloth.
I mean, Koma, we could talk all day. This is rugby, and we normally do that. But just to wrap up, obviously, I got two things that I want to chat to you about, and then we'll wrap up quickly. Obviously, All Blacks open against France on
Yeah,
Friday.
yeah.
I'm taking the train to Paris on Friday morning,
You just had to
so
rub
I'm
that in.
gonna be so I'm
You,
gonna be in the
you
stadium.
could have just
Well,
said
it
the All
depends.
Blacks play. You should have just said they play and just move on. But no,
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So fun fact about me, actually, and a lot of people don't know this. I actually prefer to watch uh, big games like this from in at home on
really,
TV, whether it's in a hotel room or at
yeah,
home. But obviously, part of my work sometimes involves
yeah.
going to the stadium and and I'm very blessed and fortunate to be able to do that this Friday because I think this World Cup is special. So many contenders who have the ability to lift the Webb Ellis.
Mm,
France, another favorite team of mine
yeah.
for a number of reasons. Um, I wouldn't feel sad if France won the whole thing because they're at home. They've been playing
I would
fantastic.
feel very sad. I would be sick if France won.
I would not. They've been playing fantastic rugby over the last few years, which is good for our game. Brings in
Yeah,
new spectators. They have, one of I think the best player on the planet right now in Duport.
yeah,
And one of my favorites, Ramos, as well. So, I mean, talk to just quickly. Who do you think comes out on top? Obviously, bearing in mind what happened last week and how the
Yeah,
All Blacks are feeling, their psyche, and
yeah,
they're playing a very formidable opponent
yeah,
on Friday night.
yeah. So this is going to be my unbiased assessment,
Yeah,
especially with what I saw in Twickenham. I honestly feel this World Cup is for South Africa to lose.
right.
And the All Blacks are always in it. You can never count them out. But like I told you before, there's something about the Springboks that when it comes to these big moments, they go into this high gear. But
Yeah,
with that also being said, one of the things I've always respected about the French, and this is why I think it's hard for countries to always give France their props, no pun intended. But
mm,
the what is it? What's the expression where it says the whole is greater than the sum of the parts?
yeah,
France always plays as a cohesive unit, has always been. So, like if you were to see a game with the French and you were to say who was the best player on that, chances are you could not pinpoint and say it was that guy or it was that person because France has always played as a cohesive unit. And that's what makes them so lethal because people underestimate them. France has never had the Jonah Lomus, the Beast, or Etzebets, or Sia, somebody who stands out, with the exception of back in the day of Serge Blanco when we're
yeah.
dating things back. But the French have never been known for having those big names. And don't also underestimate the Irish.
The
I
Irish are
actually,
looking good.
I honestly feel this will be the best World Cup ever
Hmm.
because I feel the level of game has elevated. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, to the last couple of World Cups, it really boiled down to South Africa, Australia, or New Zealand. That was it.
Right.
Maybe England, maybe on a good day, but
Yeah.
it really was those three. And if we really split that atom, it was South Africa or New Zealand. But
Right. Right.
this is
Right.
the first year Ireland is in contention. I mean, Ireland is ranked number one. You know,
Yep.
we can't just
And
see
and Julie deserve. They're playing well. They're playing
it.
amazing rugby.
And the one thing about the Irish is talent wise, I don't think the Irish are as skilled as like the All Blacks.
Mhm.
But they play like they are the All Blacks, if that
Right.
makes
Right.
sense. The
And they're
Irish
well
have
coached.
the
Very well
Irish are
coached.
not afraid of anybody. They've
Hmm.
never been afraid of anyone. The only thing that has been an Achilles heel for the Irish in the past is talent wise, they weren't just as good. But
Right.
but now this year, their talent is up there as well. And it was great to see countries like Fiji. Fiji beat England.
Oh man.
So the
Man.
talent level, people have
Man.
elevated their game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you see Fiji beating England just before the World Cup,
That was
this
pretty
World
cool.
Cup is going to be it's going to feel like it's the Royal Rumble of WWF.
Right.
Quite honestly.
Right. I mean, Koma, like I said, we can talk about rugby
Yeah.
um, all day. But so you said what? France is winning it on Friday? Who's winning it?
No, 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 no. Easy, easy. I gave them their props, but I'm still
Okay.
picking the All Blacks. I,
The old,
I, I'm still picking
okay.
the All Blacks to win it, but
Yeah.
I think this is South Africa's tournament to lose
To
because
lose.
their depth and their talent, you can't deny that. So South Africa
Awesome.
have to mess up to lose this World Cup.
Nah, man, bro, I really appreciate you making time. I know you're busy. Your
Yeah,
schedule is mad, but you made time to jump on a call with us, joining the
absolutely,
podcast.
absolutely, man.
And I just want to give a shout out to you because you're killing it in the corporate space, C-suite with MIT Lincoln Lab, which is like a phenomenal organization.
It is.
And yeah, and also people need to see your portraits. Hopefully, we can put a few of them,
Sure.
when we edit, so people can see how talented you are.
No, I
With
appreciate
your
it.
with your pencil as well. So
Yeah.
really glad that we connected last year. And I always enjoy having a chat with you. So thanks for coming on. And
Yeah, no, no,
I know the next 2 months are going to be great for us.
Yeah, the only thing I would say in conclusion is Monoma Itabas. And it's not overseas the Mabas. So thank you so much, Monoma.
Tinotenda Mkoma. Have a good one. Say hi to the family, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Cheers, man. Enjoy the
Cheers,
World Cup.
bro. I will. Thank you so much.